My name is Jimmy Hockemeyer with the Michigan DEQ out of the Flint field office. This presentation is more based on residential tips in how to maintain good water quality and things that you should be doing in your own home to make sure that you have good water quality and so on and so forth. So this one I expect a lot more questions, so it might be a little short, but I like to answer any questions that I can. So we'll start off with what is water quality, right? You know, water we think of, we want it to be clear. We want it to taste good. We want it to smell good, have no smell actually. So when it comes to water quality, there's many different components to it, from color and taste, but then we have compliance and regulations and contaminants, right? Lead is a contaminant in water. So there's a lot of things that are done at the water plant that are done through distribution system optimization to remove these contaminants to make the water quality higher and better and in compliance and under regulation, all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to water use, there's a couple different things. Cold water, that's what we think of as consuming water, right? You want to use cold water to heat up to make spaghetti. You want to use all that kind of stuff as a normal practice. And we're talking more outside of Flint. Flint, we still want to stress the importance of using filters for cooking and drinking, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to hot water, and I've met many people that didn't know this, but hot water is not for consumption. Hot water is for hygiene. Hopefully nobody is taking hot water out of the tap and making ice, tea or something right there. They really should be using cold water, then heating it up to put a tea bag in. That's a very important thing. Hot water has some different things to it. It goes through a water heater. It can set for long times. It can have a different taste or smell, which comes from the avenue that it's heated up and it's put inside of a water heater and it travels through. And usually hot water is only used in the morning when you take a shower, right? Or maybe you have a hot load of laundry going through a laundry machine. But for here in Flint, again, we're stressing the uses of filters for water you're going to consume. For drinking, cooking, but washing, cleaning your dishes, all those type of things, you can use unfiltered water for those. Okay? So one of the biggest things we want to talk about when it comes to water quality in your own home are things like water stagnation. How long does water sit? If you go on a vacation to the Bahamas for a week, when you come home, it'd be a very good idea to flush the toilet a few times, run your kitchen and your bathroom faucets. Just a pencil width of water for 2 to 5 minutes. That'll allow a few gallons of water to go through the entire home. It'll pull any water sitting in your service line through that faucet. It'll bring fresh water from the main into your home. It's very important. Even a weekend, some of the things you want to do, you want to open that tap and let that water flow through. Some people may have heard of a chlorine residual before, right? We add chlorine to water to disinfect water. We want to stop any bad bacteria like E. coli from getting to you. If water sits for a long time, it can lose this chlorine residual, and that's a very bad thing. We want that water to move. That water out in the main has chlorine in it. Bring that fresh water with chlorine and phosphates into your home. So who's ever heard of that before? Okay, is that a normal practice if you were out for a long time to come home and turn on a faucet or so? Some people know those things. Some maybe they'll turn a faucet on, they're gone for a week, come back and some brown water will come out, but then it goes clear. That's why we want to keep that water moving and flush it after a long stagnation. So water heaters. Right, water heaters usually set about 165 degrees. It's very hot in there. It's a very interesting environment. And a water heater basically is a big steel can, and the inside of it is lined with glass. That's how the water can sit in there, be heated and cooled over time, and it won't get to the metal. And in a water heater, we use a magnesium rod. It's an actual big piece of magnesium, the metal, goes in the water heater, and that helps inhibit corrosion, stop corrosion inside of that water heater. Okay, but over time, and you may have seen, hey, this water heater is warranted by the manufacturer for 10 years, right? Well, they're saying, okay, that magnesium rod inside your water heater will stop corrosion for 10 years. So it's a good practice to make sure that you're following your manufacturer's guidelines, because if that hot water heater sits for more than 10 years, doesn't have that magnesium rod, it can start to corrode on the inside, and you may get bad water quality. You may see some colored water or some ironish water come through and you'll smell that. It's a very good idea to flush that and to, again, stay inside that manufacturer's guidelines. And one of the things that every manufacturer states is there should be some type of flushing. You know, every year maybe you flush a gallon or two of water out of this little flushing valve at the bottom, okay? And sometimes sediment can build up down there. Inside that can, if that rod's gone, maybe some corrosion will take place and it'll fall to the bottom. Little pieces of metal will fall to the bottom and you want to get that out of there. Because what you don't want is you don't want to be using the hot water and that material will flow up and into the pipes and out of your faucet. So who's ever flushed their own water heater before? You know, that's something definitely, it even states on the water heater when you should do these things. All that information, you can go online and find that as well. You know, again, with stagnation and flushing your water heater, these are different tips that we can say for you to have better water quality in your home. One of the biggest things that a municipality, a water department, a system faces is what's known as a cross connection. And that's the technical term for it. Any piping arrangement which allows a potable water system to be connected to a non-potable. Basically what they're saying is, can water from a drum that's been outside, it's full of dirt or whatever else, can that water ever get back into the plumbing of your home or back into that water main? We go to big lengths to stop these things, okay? Leaving a hose in that drum with that valve open, there could be a potential that that material, that water in that bucket could get sucked back into your home and you could be opening up your faucet in the home and you could get water from that bucket coming out of that faucet. Okay, it's a very low probability. You have to have a water main break or some situation, but you know, in laboratories and schools we put cross-connection devices in on all the sinks. That way when a hose is in that slop sink and there's some acid over there, it can't get up and into the drinking fountain in the same room or something. Okay? So these are things you shouldn't do. Don't leave a hose in a bucket of even car wash water. Okay? Take that hose out and hang it back up on the outside of that hose reel. Okay? One of the other things that as an operator I dealt with is there's always a situation where someone calls and says, hey, all of a sudden I used a tremendous amount of water and I only use X amount of water every month for the last 30 years and all of a sudden I've used a ton more. You know, what's going on here? Well, as an operator, and this is something that the city, call them and talk to them about it, what usually happens is a toilet is running or there's a leak somewhere. And when you get a big, sudden, high usage that just comes up out of nowhere, one of the very first things to do is check the water meter. Who knows what their water meter is in their house? But one of the things, if you go down into your basement, you don't know where your water meter is, try to find where the pipes come together, and a pipe should come down on a wall somewhere. Find that water meter. Make it so it's accessible. You got to be able to get to that. Okay? And one of the very first things you can look for is on every water meter, there's this little dial right here. And this is a leak dial. It's an indicator that water is moving. Okay, even the most minute water, like a toilet running, this little dial will spin. It'll spin rapidly. So if you're at home and you're by yourself and there's nothing running, no dishwasher, no wash machine, no showers on, and that dial's running, that indicates that water's moving somewhere. There's a leak, there's a toilet running, something's going on. So this is the time to find out where that is. Stop that water use, okay? And let's say you can't find the leak anywhere, and you say, I don't know where it's going. How could I test if it's my toilet that's leaking? Well, there's two things you can do. You can go to the local hardware store, and you could buy a dye pack. It's a little packet of dye that goes in the back of the toilet in the big bowl. And what will happen is that blue dye, without flushing toilet, all of a sudden blue dye will come through into the toilet bowl itself. And you know that water's getting past that flapper in there. And that water's running, and that's where the water's going. If you don't have that, you can always use blue food coloring. Dump some back there and come back 5-10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, and look to see if that's starting to turn color. Because then we know, hey, that's where the leak is. We can fix that real quick. A $5 little flapper is a lot cheaper than, a $200 water bill, right? These are all things that every homeowner, this is a tip for every homeowner, no matter where you live, to stay on top of your water quality and your water bills and all these different things. So plumbing materials. Who's ever went in their basement and looked at, I wonder what my house has for a water line? Who's ever done that before? Yep. I mean, copper. Usually you'll see copper, which is down here, nice and shiny. Sometimes it's painted or corroded, and you got to take a little bit of sandpaper and find it. Sometimes you have galvanized steel. It'll be grayish or dark black in color. Sometimes it has some red stains, a little bit of like corrosion taking place. And if you live in a newer house or have had somebody come in and replumb your house, you may see this plastic pipe. Another word for it is PEX tubing. Okay? And there's always lead. We haven't found, and it's very unlikely to find leaded lines in a home, actual water lines, but the service line coming up into the meter could be lead. And very easy to pinpoint if it's lead. Go down, find your meter, and lead is dull. It's a dull gray. It's very soft. You know, you can usually take your fingernail and you can press into it. And the most important thing, if you want to know if you have a lead line, there's this kind of a bad photo, but you see how this part of the liner here kind of bulbs out? It looks like a snake swallowing a golf ball. That's the kind of thing to look for if you have a lead line. Lead lines don't have any threads on them. You know, they're not soldered like a copper pipe. They have what's known as a weld over top. It's actually spread over to connect it to the fitting. Okay? So when you go home today, go look. Investigate your own home. Look to see if you have a lead line coming in the home. If you do, get in contact with us. We'd like to know. Okay? And of course, in any home, there are some times when you're inspecting, you'll find stuff like this. You'll find a galvanized pipe like that with a lot of rust and corrosion. Sometimes you find this a lot on top of a water heater. The line's coming out. You know, that water's warm there. It's usually humid right there. Sometimes these things will have leaks that develop. You know, these are the good times to investigate and keep on track of these things. That way you don't come home one day and your basement's full of water because one of these pipes let go. And as an operator, I got to say this. At a meter, there's always going to be a valve. It might be before the meter, might be after the meter, might be on both sides. And as an operator, 3 o'clock in the morning on a really cold January day, you'll get a call that a resident has a broken line in their home. It froze and it's leaking everywhere and they can't shut the water off. So I would jump in the truck, get to the water plant, get my tools, go out to the resident's home, and we could stop all that water damage and leak if we could only turn that valve. But that valve hasn't been touched in so many years, it won't turn, it won't shut the water off. Then I have to go out into the snow and dig down and find the valve in the street and shut it off. These valves, very important that you inspect them. Every once in a while, turn them a little bit. Okay, the last thing you want to do is get into an emergency in your home and the valve breaks. And now, what are you going to do? It might take the city a couple minutes to get there, to be able to shut it off at the street. So these are very, very important just homeowner tips to have so you can be in better control of your plumbing and your water quality. And then for the core programs, one thing back to the program we talked about earlier, you know, Aerators, the device at the end of your faucet. Okay, it's an energy conservation device. It's supposed to make you think there's more water coming out than there really is, so you use less of it. It's kind of like a waterfall, but in a little tiny device shape. And material can get stuck in there, it can get lodged in that screen. So regularly, you know, take these aerators off, check them, remove that material if there is any. If you can't get it out, put it in some white vinegar for a little bit. That'll break it apart, make it easier to clean. Sometimes these get really rusty if they're the really old style. Replace it. That's just kind of different things to go by. And that's it. I hope we provided some good information. I hope everybody goes home today, stop by a water site, get a kit, you know, sample your water, call the call for core number. You know, we can come out and do a core visit, provide a bottle, you know, sample your water. You know, make it a game with your kids. You know, try to find the water meter. Sometimes it's in the back corner underneath a bunch of stuff. You know, find it. Make sure you can get access to things like this. So that's kind of the whole deal.